and welcome back to another episode of Post-Traumatic Thriving. This is an epic set of episodes, and stay tuned, you'll see why. But I want to introduce our fantastic guest, Rhonda Britten. And Rhonda, I got to tell you right off the bat, I'm sure you've never heard this before, but your last name, Britten, is literally spelled and exactly the same as my daughter's name. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, see, so I had a television show in the United Kingdom, so they'd always say, Britain has been bitten by Britain.
There you go.
And no, I've actually never had anybody ever have my name before or the spelling of it. So I'm in shock.
I knew you'd be in shock. And speaking of shock, we're gonna talk about your story, which is shocking. But before we get into that, and Tanya and I start peppering you with lots of questions. You are an Emmy Award winner, which my brother is too, but I can tell already you're much cooler than him. And you've been on Oprah. He has never been on Oprah. You've been on multiple times.
And I'm cooler than him then right there, right? And I did 600 episodes of television. So I've done 600 episodes of television and won an Emmy and been on Oprah a few times. So maybe I'm a little cooler. I don't know.
You're a lot cooler.
Cool.
and I hope he watches this episode and he can hear it straight from me. You're master
cool
coach.
And humble.
Yeah. All kinds of stuff that we're going to get into in terms of your accomplishments. But Tanya and I are anxious to talk about, because you went through a really horrific trauma, which we're going to get to. But before we talk about trauma, because on this podcast, we talk about post-traumatic thriving, and you're obviously thriving. People we now, anybody who's knows you or is new to your story is going to know right now you're a thriver. But you had one of the most horrific traumas imaginable. We'll get to that, but let's start off, and let me just ask you an open question, and that is, what was life like? Where were you living? What was life like? What were your parents like? What was your family like before the day of the trauma?
We lived in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants. One was the fancy Douglas House Buffet Hotel, and the other is Big Boy. We had one of the, at one time we had a root beer stand, so there wasn't a lot of conveniences. It wasn't, it was a little town. It's a little town. There's about 5,000 people in the town. The region itself probably had, 10, 15, 20 when you drove for miles and checked everybody else out. But, we just lived in a little town, and, I sang in the choir. I sang at church. I was the president of my church youth group. I won Soapbox Derby Queen when I was 13. So I was an accomplished student. I was a straight A student, and very active in school, and, hung out with my friends and ate fudgesicles.
Wow. Did you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 siblings, one older, one younger. Mm-hmm. My older sister at the time, before the event, had just gotten married and had a baby. And my younger sister, I was 14 at the time, and she was 13. So, my parents were in the middle of a divorce. My parents, actually, it's a little convoluted, but since we have a little time here, my parents actually got divorced when I was 10 years old. My mother caught my father cheating on her. And she literally caught him red-handed. So my mother, we were living in Duluth, Minnesota, and my mother was like, I'm leaving your father. I was really happy about that, by the way. And we moved back to her little town in Upper Michigan. And that's where we were living. And my father ended up following us there. And my mother's dad, my grandpa, told my mother, nobody gets divorced in this town. Your husband wants you back, and you need to try. So my mother took my father back. And that's really, I would say, I look back on my event, back on my life. It's like that was a big, major issue, right? When she took him back, it actually, I think, set the wheels in motion. Mm-hmm. So So I was, my parents had divorced. Now they're back together. He's living in the house. I'm not happy about it. He doesn't like me very much. Never has. I was supposed to be the boy. I'm a girl. But I would go and, throw a football in the backyard or go play pool with him. And, I didn't want to do any of those things, but I knew I had to do all those things because I really did fulfill the boy role for my family, for my father, I should say.
Yeah. Wow. So a lot of kids, the parent trap, you imagine kids want the parents to get back together. Yours wasn't going that direction.
No, my mother came home. I'll never forget it. It was right before my 10th birthday. She comes in the door. We were living in Duluth, and she just looks at me and she's like, you could just tell something's really wrong. And I was, across the room from her. I was like in the doorway of the kitchen. So not close, across the living room. And I remember she just was sat there and stood there, and I was like, what, Mom? What? And then she was afraid to say it, right? She was like, I'm divorcing you. I'm leaving your father. I'm divorcing him. And I literally looked at her and said, consider that my 10th birthday present. Thank you very much. So I was super happy.
You actually said that?
Oh, I said it straight to her face. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I actually have a letter from my mother that she wrote her sister. When maybe I was 12, maybe I was 13 when she wrote this. I don't know. But my mother, so I never felt like my father liked me. Now, he wasn't, let's just say he didn't like me. My mom liked me and my dad didn't. And so there was always challenges. And I knew he didn't like me. And people, they say, oh, no, your father loves you. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I actually don't think so. And I actually, when my aunt died, her daughter found a whole bunch of letters from my mother, her only sister. And so she looked at me. She goes, I don't want to give these to you. And I go, I know what's in them. She goes, I don't want you to read it. I go, I know what's in it. I really need to read it. So she gave them to me. And the letter, one of the letters says, Ron, my dad, hates Rhonda so much, I don't know what to do. Wow. So a really good friend of my mother's said it this way. When he looked at my older sister, Cindy, she was kind of like the maid. She was like Cinderella, right? She would clean the house. She would, she was on top of everything. And so my father looked at her like, yeah, you got a job, you're cleaning, you're good, right? He looked at my little sister, Linda, like the joy of his life. So me and my sisters have very different experiences because Linda, my younger sister, was worshiped by my father, like literally worshiped her. And then, so my dad would look at my sister, my older sister, with kind of, just like whatever. He'd look at Linda like, oh, and then he'd look at you. She said to me, to my face. I didn't even ask this. She said to me, she goes, he'd look at you with disgust.
Wow.
And so, and I really do think, and again, I'm making this up. Obviously, I don't know this to be true, but I really think that I was, my mother actually was pregnant and had a boy before I was born. And the boy died at birth.
Oh.
And then they got pregnant right away with me. And my father was a big baseball sports person. And so I think the level of his heartache and disappointment. Yeah. I mean, so, they say, oh, I was supposed to be a boy. Like, no, I was really supposed to be a boy. And I felt that my whole life. I felt that my whole life.
And right now, speaking to you right now, you sound balanced and assertive. Were you, as a little girl, every little girl, yeah, I imagine, wants to have a dad who adores them. It sounds like that was a big deficit,
Yeah, it was a big deficit. No, my father did not adore me. My father didn't even, my dad was, one of those dads. And I think, I'm not the only person that had a dad like this. He just really wasn't involved. My mother was really there. My mother worked. She was a bank teller. My father was a computer programmer. I always say if only my father was still alive today, we'd be rich because he was one of the first computer programmers in the world, So darn it all, Dad, why? So yeah, he was a computer programmer. My mother worked as a bank teller. Later on, when we were little, she was a stay-at-home mom. And then I think when I was like in second grade or first grade, she started working. And so, they both worked. I think they tried to give us a middle-class lifestyle, We lived in Duluth for a part of it. And when we lived in Duluth, I think that was the happiest time because we had like 50 kids on our block. So there would be like literally every house had 3-5 kids. So it was just, we just, play kick the can all the time. And I would put on plays and, I was always dancing and singing and trying to, I always thought I wanted to be an actress. So, yeah. So I think I just stayed away from my dad and my dad kind of stayed away from me. I mean, you didn't know. I mean, so I don't know if my father, had alcohol issues or not. I mean, he definitely drank, but he didn't come home and wasn't sloppy drunk, right? Like, so he just went and watched TV and went to bed, right? So it was, if I think about my father, I think like he probably had an alcohol problem, probably. He definitely didn't come home after work. He went to a bar or played pool or did something, or, so he wasn't just around that much in the sense of, when he came home from work, he wasn't with us all evening. We never did anything as a family. We never played games. We never did anything.
Well, Tanya, jump in with any questions, but one question I'm eager to ask before you do is when you saw the other 30 kids on the block playing and their families, did you kind of wish you had a family that looked more like what was going on in the neighborhood, or did that thought go through your head?
Probably at times, but I think I also, I come from, I'm from Upper Michigan, Upper Minnesota. I'm from the Finnish background. I'm actually 100% Finnish. So how I grew up is nobody feels and nobody talks.
Right.
So there is no feeling or talking.
I get it.
So I was raised, I remember when I went to go and find a publisher for my first book, one of the, I can't remember if it was the Simon & Schuster editor asked me, I don't remember who it was, but they said, well, what was your favorite book growing up? And I said, well, now that you're asking me that, my favorite book was Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am?
Wow.
So I was, when I was 12 and 10 and 11, I was reading books like that. Why am I afraid to tell you who I am? Now, I think in school, because I was popular and I was straight A's and I did everything, that's where I got my love. That's where I got my affection. That's where I got my connection. I was, I always got this. Yeah, I always got the solos in the choir and, so that's where I got my accolades, right? That's where I got the connection. That's where people told me like, oh, you're so talented, or, oh, you're so pretty, or you're so smart, or whatever they told me. Right. But that didn't happen at home. And if it happened at home, my mother would always be like, don't you dare, because you're going to make your sisters feel bad. So I was never allowed to like brag or be happy or be like, I did it, because then my mother
just be right.
You just suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, kind of like survive, right? You just do it. And so I don't know if I thought anybody else's family was different than mine. Sure, there was probably a few times when something like I think of my friend Lori growing up in elementary school, or my friend Bobby's parents in elementary school. Me and Bobby were boyfriend and girlfriend from 2nd to 5th grade. Oh, yeah. And we had a fake wedding in 4th grade. And his parents came, we had it went in his backyard, and his parents came, and, all the neighborhood kids. But it was like, they went camping and, they did stuff. They went on vacations, and it's like, wow, so yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But we didn't have money. We didn't, I remember one time, my mother, I think after the divorce, actually, I think this is when she did it. She said, oh, you can pick your own bedspread. And it was like, pick my own bedspread. That I still remember the bedspread to this day, because it was like, I get to pick my own bedspread. That's the level of like, yeah, my mother sewed all our clothes. We lived in a little town. It had no stores. Literally anything we bought was from the JCPenney's catalog. So,
basic, wow. Humble, simple, beautiful, but a lot of projection from your dad, right? From, what the love that he wasn't able to give to you because it wasn't given to him. There was it's projection onto you. And that's trauma on every level, no matter how old you are.
Yeah. And and I haven't even gotten to, so my father, you never knew when he was going to blow up or get upset or something. Right. So when I was 12, my parent, now he's living with us again up in Upper Michigan. And I remember I was going down to the basement. He was coming out from the basement, and he asked me a question. And I think I gave him like a snarky answer, or just like looked at him like, and he looked at me and I started running. I ran as fast as I could to get to my bedroom, and I got on my back, put my hands and legs up because I knew he was going to come and attack me. And he did. He tried to choke me. He tried to kill me.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but my sister, Linda, God bless her, we shared a room, and she came running in after us. And she literally, I remember this so vividly. She's jumping up and down on her bed. Don't kill Rhonda, Daddy. Don't kill Rhonda, Daddy. And because my dad loved Linda so much, I really do think that she saved my life, because my father just could not quit choking me. Wow. So, yeah. So, I mean, just that kind of stuff. I mean, my family members have told me, like my aunts and uncles have told me that he's hit me in the past. I think that I've just ignored all that. He just didn't like me very much.
I don't think you ignored it. I think like maybe I'm speaking for you, and I apologize for that, but it's like everything in hindsight, right? But when you're going through it, it's like,
you just stay out of his way. You just stay out of his way.
Keep the peace. Just keep the peace.
Yeah, just stay out of his way. I thought about my mother. Like she's going, like she's in hell, right? So I'm not going to make her life hell.
Right.
But don't get me wrong. I mean, just like I said, I was able to be, vocal and connected to other people. But this is a kind of a good example. When I was in college, in high school, I could not raise my hand and ask a question, because being smart was so valued in my home. Like you had to be smart. You were smart. And if you're smart, you never ask a question. You go into these, we had encyclopedias, and I would go and read encyclopedias. My father was very, 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 my mother would always say, your father's a genius, your father's a genius, your father's a genius. Because remember, he's doing computers before there were computers, right? So, so I couldn't raise a hand. I couldn't ask for help, because if you asked for help, you were stupid. Mm-hmm. So when I would have a problem in math, I would work it backwards. If I had a problem in anything, I would go and research it or do whatever. And again, there was no internet back then, and figure it out, because I couldn't ask a question. I couldn't ask a question to the teacher. No. This went on till college. And I remember being in college, and I remember I went to the University of Minnesota. So it was the largest enrollment school at the time. And so there's like 100 and some thousand students. So classes were, hundreds of people. And I'm from this little town. And so I remember being in this huge class, and, people were standing up and asking questions. And I remember sitting back there going, how are they doing that? Like, really, like, how are they doing that? How are they getting up and asking that question? And then I think the first time when they started asking questions, I probably was like, they're stupid, right? And then they kept asking questions, and I was like, and I still didn't do it in college. I still did not ask a question in college ever. I was so you just couldn't, no, you can't ask for help, and you can't ask for questions. You have to suck it up, and you have to suck it up. That's how I grew up.
That's how you were raised. Yeah.
Yeah. So with your childhood, I can't help but ask, where were the grandparents, and what was going on with your teachers and kids in the neighborhood? Did they think everything was fine with you, or did they know something was kind of up? And
I think everybody, kind of kept to themselves. I mean, I used to have, slumber parties in my garage, and all the girls were there. I did a few years back. One of my friends from junior high said to me, and I don't remember this, but she said, Rhonda, before the tragedy, I was staying at your house because people come and sleep over. My girlfriends would come sleep over, and she goes, you were talking about how your dad is, and she remembers she was really scared to be there.
Wow.
And so I've been able to experience what my house was like through other people's eyes, right? After the fact, and now, whatever, 40 years later, right? I've been able to, at high school reunions or seeing friends when I go back home. And I ask them, now I ask everybody, well, tell me about how I was, tell me about, I ask everything. I started waitressing when I was 13, started babysitting when I was 10. So I always had a job.
So rough childhood. I mean, and your mom was not really sticking up for you, it sounds like.
I think my mom, what she did is she tried to make up for it. Yeah. So did my father get kicked out of the house after he tried to strangle me? No.
She kept the peace.
Right. I think about that moment. Like I think about how my mother couldn't protect me in that way either. Yeah. But I think that, I think she just tried to make up for it. I mean, I knew my mother loved me. And I would dare say I was almost her favorite because I think it was a counter to my father.
Mm-hmm.
And what's astounding is that you're describing this childhood. We're not really even at the trauma yet.
No, this is the good stuff.
Yeah.
But this is the good stuff. But you know what? It's like it leads, right? It's like it's a journey. And the way we were raised, the way we were brought up, who we engaged with kind of like sets the trajectory of our life. At a very young age, you were, I need to be perfect. I'm a straight A student, etc. And you, like I said earlier, like your dad was a projection of what he was going through. And we're going to hear more about your experience here. I just think my dad didn't know how to deal with feelings. He was not able to communicate. My mother didn't share her feelings. Like everybody was all stuffed up because that was how we grew up. Finnish people. I mean, even today, remember 60 Minutes did a big series on Finland, big show on Finland. And it's like, nobody shares, nobody talks, nobody, they're helpful. They'll be helpful. Like if your barn burns down, they'll come and help you. But, everybody keeps to themselves and doesn't get in your business. And, they're not curious. Like people aren't curious. Exactly.
Even to this day, when I go home, like literally nobody asks me what I'm doing or how I am, or like they just don't.
So I think maybe it's a cultural thing as well as a generational thing, because my parents are, my mom's German and my dad's American, but back in World War II, it's kind of like, okay, we went through all this stuff, right? Pick yourself up by the bootstraps, try to, cope with life. They were like that generation. They were not taught coping skills. They were like,
they had to survive, My mother was first generation born here. My grandparents were born, two of my grandparents were born in Finland, two were born in the States, but my mother was really the first generation born here. So, they lived through the Depression. My grandparents, because I know, Randy, you asked me a minute ago about my grandparents. My grandparents were not warm and fuzzy, as you probably gathered. Right. So, there was no like going to my grandparents' house to get relief or support. No, my grandmother would pull my hair to get my attention, or she'd, again, it wasn't thought of as mean or bad at all. It was just.
It just is. It's all you do.
It was just is. So when I remember the first time somebody said to me, "Oh, you were abused." I'll never forget this. I think I was maybe 30 years old, maybe, or 28 or something like that. And somebody said, "Oh, you were abused." And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about? I had a great childhood. I had 50 kids on my block." And he's looking at me like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "What?" It literally wasn't even in my vocabulary. Well, again, I don't think it was in most people's vocabulary. It just wasn't even a concept for me to think that my life was hard or bad in any way.
It's a perception.
Yeah. It's just, this is my life.
Yeah. Different.
And, this is my life and this is what I have to do. And this is what I have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like home life was rough. You knew it was rough. But I
used to get stomach aches every day coming home from school.
Yeah.
I did not want to go home.
But your joy was at school and with your friends in the neighborhood and your girlfriends and all that.
Yeah, my joy was church and school and
anything but home.
Yeah, I mean, and if I was home, I'd just be reading my encyclopedias or,
Wow. That's
your Britannica.
When my mother bought that set of encyclopedias, it was a big deal. I mean, if you can, think about it, that was expensive. And that was a big deal.
Luxury,
she bought those. Yes. So I would sit there on the floor on my belly, just like going through the
dissecting. Yes. Oh my goodness.
wow.
But you know what? It's really it's not funny. It's not anything. It's really amazing how everybody grows up in different demographics, different populations with different experiences.
Yep.
But yet it's like, wow, even, I know everything that you're sharing with us is everything in hindsight, but it's just listening to this story. And I know your story, but you really have shared more of your story within, like, I don't even know how long we've been on here, that I never knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are making me break it up into parts. I've got to now. But, I also had a boyfriend all the time. Like, I had a boyfriend when I was in kindergarten, So I think what I did is I just sought love from other people, like love from my teachers, love from, my teachers, from church, from my boyfriend. I had a boyfriend in kindergarten. I have a boyfriend in first grade. I had a boyfriend from second to fifth grade. We still have each other's phone numbers. I always thought I would marry him. And then when we moved back to Michigan, I had a boyfriend, so I always, my looking out was out. It wasn't, I just wanted to get away. Right. I just wanted to have a boyfriend. I just wanted to have friends. I wanted somebody to love me. I just needed somebody to love me. And so I got a lot of my affection and attention and approval externally.
Yeah. Well, and I want to keep the focus on you, but sitting here, I can't help but notice the contrast because I with Tanya and her family, they were right outside the window here at Monarch Beach with playing beach blanket bingo in their bikinis and having nothing but fun.
Oh my God, like how great would that have been?
Yeah.
Like literally when people tell me these things and I hear stories now as an adult of childhood, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You actually I think you actually rent places and you actually went to the beach and you actually did it as a family and you actually had a picnic.
So where Randy's office is, literally, if you go to, his right.
I can see it. Yeah.
It's the beach.
But yeah. So
but it's a contrast.
A big contrast. So Rhonda, anything else you want to, before we get to the trauma in the next episode, so stick around for the next episode because you think that sounds rough. Wait for the next episode.
And just so you know, Randy, you have to remember, I didn't even think it was rough.
Yeah.
Right? I thought, that's the thing. I was just like, do, and not do in that sense of the word. But I just kept my head down and just worked hard and got my love elsewhere. And I just thought this is what everybody did until I grew up and realized, oh, crap, I really am screwed up.
Well, and you know what, Rhonda, and thank you so much for sharing that because, it's so funny. It's not funny. I always say, hey, it's funny. But we didn't know what domestic violence was. We didn't know. I mean, my God, my dad and my mom, it was like, we never heard my mom and dad bicker. We were the house that everybody congregated at, barbecues, parties, birthdays, all of that. But when push came to shove, it's kind of like, wow, this is not the normal. It's really not.
No,
people, it's not.
People have come up to me after I, gave a talk or something. They've come up to me and go, I want to be a coach or I want to write a book. And they say, but nothing bad happened to me growing up. And I go, sweetheart, I'm glad nothing bad happened to you. And You know what? I want you to write a book about how nothing happened to you. I want to hear the happy story. I want to hear what it was like to be in a healthy environment with parents who loved you and asked you questions. Because again, my parents never asked me questions either. So it's like, what was it like to have curious parents? What was it like to have people involved? I want to know that. I always say to people, you think that, oh, my life was so good that you have nothing to contribute. It's like, no, we need those role models.
We do. Yeah. We need people to share their stories. Hence the reason why, why we're here, because, right, it's like a compare contrast, and people need to hear this. When Denise and I started doing our advocacy on domestic violence, it was like, people were sharing their stories with us. I'm like, oh my God, what's this domestic violence thing? We didn't know what it was. We never heard mom and dad bicker, yet alone fight. It's, so when people came to us, it was like, oh my God, it was a big eye opener. And, without judgment, but you're in that population that really, opened up our eyes, our hearts to know that, wow, there are families out there who don't have loving parents.
Most families don't.
Yeah. Wow. Because that's our normal, just the way you were raised. Yeah. That was your normal.
Yeah. So it's like, different expectations, different needs, different, different opportunities, different everything. But it's like, I think that, I know for me, and we'll get there later, but there's so much shame involved with it, right? Because somehow you're from that family, right? You're from that family. And then, like I said, I didn't even know that I was treated poorly until I was like in my late 20s, when somebody kind of confronted me about it. And I was like, wow, okay, I think you're right. But it's blowing my mind right now. To even think that my father strangling me was like, okay, my father strangled me, oh, my father, didn't like me, gave me dirty looks, refused to talk to me. I mean, like, those things are like, oh, that's bad. Yeah. Isn't that what happens in all families?
Yeah.
It's your normal. That was your normal. Yeah.
Well, as if it can't get worse, we're going to get, get there. So, this is, thank you so much, Rhonda, for telling the story so far. Post-traumatic thriving, this is where we come and tell the stories, where we go from dive, survive, thrive through the process of trauma recovery. Your story is epic. We're about to get to the next chapter, post-traumatic thriving, where we either dive, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
Okay. See you on the next episode.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.